Hello, welcome back to my channel where today I'll be talking about why referencing is important for my art. I'm getting back into my old style of art, where I really like to work with chiaroscuro, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it correctly. So definitely feel free to correct me down below in the comments if you know the actual pronunciation of this. But it's basically an Italian technique where you focus on the extreme contrast between light and dark. And especially with portraiture, I feel like it looks so good and it never really goes wrong. It just makes all my pieces look so much more interesting and so much more emotional without having to put too much emotion into the actual face itself. It just elevates all my work and I absolutely love it, so that's why I'm going back to it now. But in today's video specifically, I wanted to talk about how I use references to improve my artwork. So whenever I do artwork, I always use a reference, but I don't always use it to the best of its ability. I think referencing is very important and all artists should use reference, especially if you're trying to improve an area of your art. For me, currently it's composition. The last few art pieces I did, the composition was completely off, and it comes from an issue where I kind of just draw a feature of the face and then I realize it's too big, but there's nothing I can really do about it. And I just end up cutting down the paper until it looks a little bit better. So I really want to get out of the habit of doing that, especially as I want to do some work on canvas, and obviously I can't really cut down the canvas once I've started. So I really wanted to look at composition, and using reference really helped me with that. So I took my reference photo myself. I do try and do this when I can, but I'm definitely not trying to make the piece itself look like me. I hope that doesn't come across in any way. I don't want it to look like me. That's not really what I'm going for. It's not meant to be a self-portrait at all. I just wanted this photo to make sure that I could get all the features in the right place on the page. And the best way of doing that is going into the camera app, and I bring up the grid so I can see the rule of 3 across the photo, and then I can place the features exactly where they need to be in order to have a good composition. So for this picture, I wanted the bridge of the nose to be at the first cross section. The face was divided by one of the lines. The top of the face and the bottom of the neck were also halfway between a third line, and then the ear on a diagonal cut through the middle of a third line. I'm not going to go particularly into how to use the rule of 3. It's one of the fundamentals of photography and art, and I learned it during my A-levels, and I definitely use it when I take photos, or at least when I edit down photos, but I kind of stopped using it for art mainly because I wasn't drawing faces anymore, and I felt like it didn't matter where things were falling on the page. But doing this really showed me that it does matter where those things are, and I should be concentrating more on what's going to make a good image at the end of the day, because I want my art to be good. I felt like it wasn't that good for a while. But this piece I'm really proud of. I think it looks really surreal, which is what I was going for. And again, I love the contrast. I think it looks so cool. Going into the surreal aspects I was going for, I wanted to make the eye bigger. And I feel like making the eye bigger only really worked because the face was all in proportion to each other. So the size of the eye looks very purposeful rather than being a mistake on my part. Because I feel like if the face was kind of in a weird composition, it wouldn't look as purposeful. It would look like it was a mistake and I didn't really know the size of an eye on a human face. So that's also why composition is really important, and also why referencing is important, because with referencing you have to know what you like about a reference and what you don't like about a reference, and what you want to do to make it more your style and make it more interesting. I also decided to make the neck more of an awkward shape, and the top of the head to lean backwards a little bit more, just to get a more exaggerated kind of S shape onto the face. Again, I felt like it looked more surreal, but in a very purposeful way. I really like surrealist art. I got back into it recently. It's one of the other art styles that I'm very much drawn to, and I feel like for me personally, mixing together the old Italian style of portraiture with a surrealist kind of angle really works for my art style, really works for how I want my art to be portrayed and the emotions I want to put into my art, because I don't want my art to be boring, and I feel like sometimes it gets very boring and very repetitive. I like drawing faces. In particular, I like drawing faces from the side angle. I like drawing men's faces. So a lot of my art tends to be a little bit samey, or if it's not samey, I kind of just draw demons, which aren't very in proportion and don't look that good in the end. I'll put an example up of an art piece I did quite a while ago, which I really like, but I feel like a reference photo would have really told me how to make it look better, like how to exaggerate things in a way that looks more purposeful, rather than looking like a mistake. Because in that piece, I did the ear really big. I thought it would look really cool, but now looking at it, I'm like, oh, it doesn't really look right. And it's because I didn't use a reference. If I had used a reference, I would have realized that the ear looked far too big. It looks very cartoony that way, and that's not what I was going for. So I would have done a much smaller ear, and it would have got my point across a lot better, I think. I think my main takeaway from referencing is that I need it to kind of ground me, whereas when I don't use referencing, I kind of go off and do whatever I want, and then I'm disappointed in the work I create. And with referencing, I always find that I like the work more. I feel like it looks more professional, it looks more purposeful, it looks correct in a stylized way, and it's more obvious where I'm coming from in terms of my style references. And I've been really liking that about my art recently, and I'm really hoping to share more of this art with you. I may not. I feel like it's kind of my sort of personal time just to sit down and draw and get my emotions out. Specifically, portraiture is very based on my personal emotions and what I'm feeling in the moment. It probably comes across quite heavily in this piece what I was feeling. So for a lot of my pieces, I don't really want to share them, but because I'm proud of them, I feel like they should be shared. So I'm not really sure what I want to do with art in the future, but I don't want to leave this video on a sad note, so I'm going to talk about the future of this piece. My friend actually bought this piece from me. I'm very surprised by that. I just showed him a picture of it and they really wanted it, so I'm going to send it to them. I didn't want to charge them any money for it, but they insisted on giving me money for it, which I'm very, very grateful for. And it's motivated me so much to do more art. I'm now thinking of making a collection of art pieces, just for myself, maybe for my friends, and just to see what I can do with art when I actually really want to create it. Because last time I created like a collection of pieces was when I was doing my A-levels, and when you're doing your A-levels, it's not really your choice if you want to create the art. You have to do it, you have to get it done. So it's going to be interesting for me to see what I can create outside of that sort of environment, and I'm really excited to do that. With that said, that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like down below. Comment your thoughts on this piece. Maybe tell me your favourite artist. I always like looking up new artists. While you're down in the comments, you can also subscribe to my channel. I'm posting 3 times a week for the whole of summer, and I'd really like to see you again. So until then, bye!